Praise going on is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of His Son Jesus. I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's topic, and this actually I meant to come on last night, but was unable to. But it's in response to I told a individual I was going to answer the question that they had in three parts. I dealt with the first part as far as the arranged marriages and the marriages of kin. The next part was about divorce. And I'm going to just give an overall understanding of divorce based on what the Bible actually says. Okay. And so, because the idea is that you can't have a divorce. The New Testament is saying that you cannot have a divorce. But I'm going to just go back to the Old Testament, and we're going to look at the New Testament and see what the Bible is actually saying. Okay, so now, and because one of the ideas is you constantly hear that God hates divorce. You cannot read that. Okay, let's go to where that's read. Let's go to Malachi, because we see there's a bill of divorcement as well. We'll get to that in a second. But now let's go to what people say first and foremost, that he hates divorce. This is Malachi, the second chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 16. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to go back and read it in context. So it says, "For the Lord, the God of Israel, saith that he hateth putting away, for one covereth violence with his garment, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously." Okay, so now one would say that he hates divorce here, but that's putting away and divorce are not exactly the same thing. I'm going to say that again. Putting away and divorce are not exactly the same thing. Okay, so now let's go to Deuteronomy. We're going to come back here. Hold our finger here. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, where you see the bill of divorcement given by Moses. Peace to you, Brother Leo. It's good to see you there, brother. So in Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, in verse 1, it says, "When a man have taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house." So a divorce, it gets at least according to Torah, consisted of two things: an actual dissolvement of a union between a husband and a wife. Was two things. One, first of all, the man, not a woman. You never see a woman writing a bill of divorcement. Okay, that's number one. You see that you see that in the Western world today, but in the patriarchal world of the East, the patriarchy that the Bible is putting forth, that you see where men are the heads, you do not see women write men a bill of divorcement. So let's get that out there. But a divorce consisted of two things. One, him writing a bill of divorcement. Two, putting it in her hand. And two, sending her out of his house. Okay, that would be a bill of divorcement. Okay, so verse 2. So I'm gonna read that again. "When a man have taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife." But one thing, only way she could be another man's wife is if she had that bill of divorcement. Why? Because if she went to try to be another man's wife without that bill of divorcement, you should understand that even though he may have put her out of his house without that bill of divorcement, that woman is still married. So that would constitute adultery if she would go and be with another man. Okay, so that's why she had to have that's witness of a divorce. Okay, and if the latter husband hate her and write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand, so now she got this scenario. She got divorced. She was married, got divorced, had the bill of divorcement. She married another man. He had a problem with it. He did the same thing, wrote her a bill of divorcement and sent her out of his house. So it said, "And if the latter husband hate her and write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house." And it said, "Or if the latter husband died, which took her to be his wife." So her second husband, he's dead. He either died or he sent her a bill of divorcement. her former husband, her first husband, would send her away, may not take her again to be his wife. He can't take that woman back after she done been with another man. It says, for that is abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. Now let's go to Malachi, the second chapter, back to Malachi, the second chapter. And we're going to read into it. Now, first off, because again, when he said he hated putting away there, we should understand that that's talking about a separation. Okay. And what men were doing is, when what was treacherous is that, well, let's read into it. We'll read into it. You'll find out why it's treacherous, why it's just putting away and not actual divorce. Malachi, the second chapter and verse 11, it said, Judah have dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem, for Judah have profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved, and married the daughter of a strange God. So what Judah was doing was dealing with foreign women. Now, it wasn't just the sense of that they were from another nation, okay? Because it's the fact that they are dealing with these other nations of women that are serving other gods. You have to have that caveat there. That has to be, because that is where the problem is, okay? Let's see when let's see what, or an example of this. Let's go to Ezra, the 9th chapter. Let's go to Ezra, the 9th chapter. Ezra, the 9th chapter, and verse 1. It says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the land. So now this is during the days when they were able to go back after the Babylonian captivity. Peace to you, brother Joseph. So it says, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands according to their abominations, even the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. Now, why these people? Hold our finger here. Let's go back to Deuteronomy. And we're going to pick it up in the 7th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, and verse 1 says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. When the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For why? For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. See, that's the issue, false worship. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. So you want to make covenant with these people. But he said they've taken these people, and it says in verse 2, for they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers have been chief in this trespass. So some of the people, some of the rulers have been the main ones that have done this. It says, and when I heard this thing, talking about Ezra, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off the hair of my head and of my beard and sat down astonished or appalled. Okay, now let's go to Ezra the 10th chapter and let's see what they did. Ezra the 10th chapter and verse 1. Now when Ezra had prayed and when he had confessed, weeping and casting himself down before the house of God, there assembled unto him out of the Israel a very great congregation of men and women and children, for the people wept sore. And Shechaniah the son of Jehiel, one of the sons of Elam, answered and said unto Ezra, we have trespassed against our God and have taken strange wives of the people of the land. So when you read in Malachi, the 2nd chapter, verse 2, where it says, and Judah have dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem, for Judah have profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved, and have married the daughter of a strange God. That's a foreign God, the daughter of a foreign God. So you done married this woman, and she dealing in idolatry, or she dealing with these false gods. Okay, now let's go to verse 10. It said, Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives to increase the trespass of Israel. Now, therefore, make confession unto the Lord God of your fathers and do his pleasure and separate you. Listen to what he said. Separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the strange wives. Then all the congregation answered and said with a loud voice, as thou hast said, so must we do. But the people are many, and it is time of much rain, and we are not able to stand without. Neither is this a work of one day or two, for we are many that have transgressed in this thing. Okay, now let's skip down. Let's go to Nehemiah and see what he said about it. Nehemiah, Ezra, contemporaries. Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, and let's pick it up at verse 22. And here he said, and I commanded the Levites. Now he's recounting what he did. He said, and I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, O my God, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy. In those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon and Moab. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. And I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons for yourselves. Listen what he said here. He said, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? These are some of the, when you read is 1 Kings 11, Solomon did the same thing and taking these wives, and they turned his heart from following the true and living God. It says again in verse 26, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, talking about in wisdom, who was beloved of his God and made him king over all of Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women, or these foreign women, cause to sin. And he building false edifices to these false gods of these women. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our God and marrying strange wives? Okay, so now that's an example of what is going on. So that's what he's talking about in Malachi, the 2nd chapter, in verse 11. And it said, the Lord will cut off the man that doeth this, the master and the scholar out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offereth an offering unto the Lord of hosts. Verse 13. I mean, Malachi 2 and 13. And this have ye done again. So now he's talking about, he's talking about something else you've done. He says, and this have ye done again, covering the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping and with crying out, in so much that he regarded not the offering anymore, or receiveth it with good will at your hand. So you making these offerings and you crying, you weeping out to, you crying out to the Lord, but he's not hearing you. Now, why isn't he hearing you? Yet ye say, wherefore? Wherefore means why. I mean, why is he not hearing? It says, because the Lord had been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth. Now, wait a minute. Who's the wife of thy youth? That's the wife you didn't marry. Not talking about the foreign women here. It's talking about your wife. Now, he said, the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. He said, you didn't dealt treacherously. We're going to get to why you've done treacherously. He says, yet is she thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. And did not he make one? Talking about, what do you mean one? Let's hold our finger here and go to Genesis. Because this is when you see the institution of marriage put forth. Genesis, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 24. It says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So now they're one. So they're one physically. Paul tells you that. When he's talking about being one with a harlot, right? So you're one with your wife, but you also one accord. Y'all one union, the institution of marriage. But he tells you what the purpose is for. The purpose, ultimate purpose of the institution of marriage is this. And did not he make one? Yet had he the residue of the spirit. And wherefore one? Oh, why did he make you one? It says that he might seek a godly seed. He didn't say a bastard seed. He didn't say an unrighteous seed. He said a godly seed. Right? So when you think about this, because when you think about what was going on in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, they were being unequally yoked. You think about in Genesis, the 6th chapter, where the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took of them all wives which they chose. You had these men of renown come up, but one thing you had, wickedness run them up. And that's what happens when you are unequally yoked. We're going to get to further what Paul even saying about this. But it said, wherefore, it says, and why did he make one, yet had he the residue of the spirit, and wherefore one, that he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. Now, how are you dealing treacherously with the wife of your youth? Let's keep going. It said, for the Lord, the God of Israel, said he hateth putting away. Not, we say, well, putting away is divorce. No, it's not, because you see what it is when you read in Torah about divorce. A divorce constituted of a man writing a bill of divorcement, putting it in his wife's hand, and sending her out of his house. That's a divorce. You sending her out of your house without that bill of divorcement is not a divorce. I'm gonna say that again. You sending her out of your house without a bill of divorcement is not divorce. That's likened to what happens today when people are separated. Separation, like people actually have that as a status. What are you separated? You married still. People acting when they separated, they be acting like they not married, but you still married just because you're not in that house. Y'all still are married. So it said, for the Lord, the God of Israel, said that he hateth putting away. For one covers violence with his garment, said the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to yourself, to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously. Now, what's the treachery in that? See, because again, peace to you, Brother Tavion. It's good to see you there, brother. And Brother Dewan, peace to you as well. And Jim Brown, peace to you as well. So now, one thing about it is you putting her away. Let's say you put her away. Let's say you just put her out of your house and you separate yourself, get out of my house for whatever reason, without a bill of divorcement. Now think about the culture of the time. The culture was this. Women couldn't just go down to Walmart and get a job. Women couldn't just go, I'm going to go to grad school, get my doctor. I got heard women say, once I get this nursing degree, I'm out of here. I done heard people say that. No, that's not what it was. Women, it was a patriarchy, and women were dependent upon men. Not saying they didn't do certain types of work, don't get me wrong, but men were running it. So in a society like that, a woman needed to be married. It could be the difference between you living well and being destitute. You look at the example, when you look at Ruth and Naomi and what was going on then. They were gleaning. Why? They ain't had no husband to take care of them. Okay? So, in this country, they've taken the okie doke where you like, well, I got this, I'm independent, so-called, and I can take care of myself. Then you end up with no husband. Okay? And a bunch of college debt. But nevertheless, here what they were doing, they were sending the women out of their house, not giving them a bill of divorcement. And under those patriarchal circumstances of the East in the Hebraic culture, well, what happened was you could end up being destitute. So now what happens in peace to you, brother? So now you end up doing what? Same thing that people call themselves separated, women call themselves separated today. Do you deal with, like men too, they deal with somebody else. And in dealing with somebody else, you committing adultery. But see, the man that kicked you out of his house without a bill of divorcement and separated himself, he actually is complicit in that adultery because he's setting you up for failure. Because that's the thing. Men can say, well, I could just put you out of the house. Yeah, okay, you'll be out there. You can't be with nobody. And again, in Hebraic culture, and according to Torah, even according to Torah, a man could have another wife. So what, like he could be, he wasn't gonna be by himself. The woman, though, just out there would be by herself. If she would, otherwise, if she wasn't by herself, she's still married to that man, and she go out and deal with somebody else. That's adultery. That could get you killed. That could get her killed and the guy killed that she's dealing with. It wasn't, so a woman was only supposed to have one husband. So that's how, so when you look at it like that, that's the treachery. Let's go. And here the Messiah is asked the question. And we should understand the context of the question in which he's answered, as well as the language. Because even when you look at it in when you look at it, when you look at the word shalak, which means, what you see it, it means to put away. Okay, so that's constituted. You would have a sefer, which is like a writing or document of curative of divorce and shalak. You would separate, and you put that bihadad in her hand, and that you would be separated. Okay, so again, shalak is not the separate. Is not divorce. It's an aspect of it. You don't have both. It's like H2O. If you don't have hydrogen and oxygen, you don't have water. You can have hydrogen by itself. You can have, it's just you got to have both. You can have oxygen by itself. You can have hydrogen by itself. You don't have them both together. You don't have water. You understand? So it is with the actual divorce. You had to have that bill of divorcement in the hand and a separation. But now let's go to Matthew the 19th chapter. And she couldn't go back if she had just to make this clarification, point of clarification. If she went to be another man's wife, she could not come back to that that first husband. Whether she was divorced, if he divorced her, or even if he died, she couldn't go back and say, I'm back. No, you're not. No, you are not. You see that in the Western world. You'll see, I know people done it, been married, been divorced, built up, women went out there, you be with somebody else, then come back to her for, we're going to try it again. Anyway, let's go to Matthew the 19th chapter. And we're going to read it in context here and get a little understanding of this thing. So it says, Matthew the 19th chapter and verse 1, it says, and it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan. And great multitudes followed him and healed them there. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him and saying, now listen, first of all, well, let me keep reading. It says, and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Now, hold on. Let's look at the context. Peace to you, brother Mr. Born Again. Now, let me say this. The first thing we should understand is why they're coming to him in the way in which they're coming to him. They're coming unto him like the Sadducees, like the scribes, like the various religious sects would come. They were coming to tempt him, to test him. As Pilate said, I find no fault in him. Meaning he went under that trial period. That trial period was to find out if any blemish or wrinkle was in him, in his doctrine, or the things that or in the things that he did. So now they're asking him a question, but look at what they asked him. The word there, or the wording there is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? So to put away is apolua, which is that Greek word, which is synonymous with shalak. It means to separate. Okay? So now, that's not the same as divorce. We should understand that is not the same as divorce. So it said, and he answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Okay, so now they are one. But a separation don't make you separate. Y'all still one. You separated, but y'all still one in the institution of marriage. It said, wherefore they are no more twain, which is two, but one flesh. Wherefore God have joined together, let no man put asunder. Okay. They say unto him, why did, and let's understand this. That is ideal, that there would be no divorce. He said, they say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. Now, put away, again, that same word does not mean divorce. So you commit, how are you committing adultery and putting your wife away or putting her out of your house? Because you're putting her in a situation to where she would commit adultery. And if you marry her, so all three of y'all complete. So let me say this. You putting her in a situation to commit adultery, to go out there and be with somebody, because they're not going to be by themselves. People are not going to be by themselves. Then the wife is doing it because she's married, even though she's put away. That don't mean you make that. Again, look at the Greek there. And we have to understand also have to understand the mindset of the people who put this in English. Okay, so now you couldn't they coming from a different culture. They put a different spin. That's why sometimes you gotta go to the original language. But so now the one that put her away, he complicit in causing her to commit adultery because he's putting her in a position to commit adultery. The woman, no good and well, she's still married. She committed adultery. And then that's like the woman at the well. He told her, you have five husbands, the one you with right now is not your husband. Then she said, you receive that, sir, that thou art a prophet. Then the man that marries her, you are complicit. You are adulterer because you have committed adultery. Because why? Because you done dealt with another man's wife. Okay? So that's how that can happen, to where you are complicit. Let's go. He said, when you read about it, again, you keep seeing the word putting away. And you got to understand their intent was to trip him up, to tempt him. Right? And that's that same treachery that you read about in Malachi 2. That's treacherous. That's treacherous. Now let's go to 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter. And here we see again, he's writing a letter responding unto something. Because he telling you in verse 1 of 1 Corinthians 7, now concerning the things whereof he wrote unto me. So now he's responding to something. Okay? He talking about it's good for a man not to touch a woman. That's not law. Okay? Then he talk about how you avoid fornication. Let every man have his own wife and let every woman have her own husband. Okay? That means you get married if you want to avoid fornication, because everybody's not built to be a self-made unit. You see Jesus or the Mashiach, he was a self-made unit. You see Paul was a self-made unit, and it says he didn't have a wife. That is not for everybody. That is not commanded. But verse 10, it says, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. Okay, so now when he said depart, understand again, he's talking about, again, this is the situation of separation. Okay. It said, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband. See, we're talking about separation. And understand, so she couldn't go. She leave her husband. You go. I'm gonna leave him, and that's what's going on. That's what was going on. You just go from one to the next. So you leaving your husband, and you dealing with some other man. He said, don't do that. He said, but if she depart, he said, first of all, don't leave. But if you do, he said, remain unmarried. You in a total state of separation. Hold on one second. Oh, you deleted it. Yeah, I don't know what he's. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, you quick on it. And if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. Okay, or be separated from her. So now again, putting her in a situation. See, it says, but if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled. So we know we're talking about the idea, the notion of separation. Okay, now let's skip down a little bit and let's go to let's skip down. Let's just keep reading. It said, but to the rest speak I not the Lord, if any brother hath a wife that believeth not. So the first part you talking about between marriages, Because you got to understand too, you talking about people who are believing, and then you got this situation where you got somebody that's not a believer. It said, but to the rest speak I not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. That's not even talking about the circumstances of the marriage in the sense of what's going on. That's talking about if this woman she said, well, you believe in what you believe, and she's pleased to dwell with you. Okay? That meaning she's not going to leave you based on your belief. Okay? Or the fact that you a believer. So it says, but to the rest speak I not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, he's talking to Gentiles. Let him not put her away. And the woman, so you don't separate from it. It said, and the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Okay? But the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. Again, he's talking to these Gentiles. Then he said, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. So now he's talking to this dude. But let me say this. I should have said it earlier. Hold on 1 second. Let me say what he's saying. Let me say this. Nobody else teaching on here. So, if you want to teach something, you can go. YouTube is free. You can go and you can get your own page. Whoever Grace Worthy is, you can get your own page and you can teach whatever you want to teach. I won't be there, but you can teach it don't matter if I'm not there. But what you're not gonna do is come here and teach. I don't understand why people do that. I don't understand why people go on other people's channels and they want to teach. I don't understand why people go on other people's channel who they have a problem with and hate, and they want to give comment that's saying, well, you don't know what you're talking about. If they don't know what they're talking about, then prove them otherwise on your own channel, on your own time. Again, if anybody don't agree with what I'm reading, it's called the World Wide Web. It's worldwide and it's free. So go do that. But what you're not gonna do is come here acting a fool. Because I certainly would delete you. I certainly will put your time out. I certainly will hide you from the channel. And I got some moderators on here that'll do the same. But tell me, I keep quicker than me. So that's just what it is. Don't come on here talking crazy. Okay? So it says in verse 15, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases. Then it says, for what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband or how knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? And that's talking about the situation. I know people that are in those circumstances to where they don't believe, but it's like, but at the same time, it's not a separation there because, hey, I could dwell with you. I'm just, they dwelling with each other. Now let's see. Let's go to verse 39 and read that here. It said, a wife is bound by the law as long as her husband liveth. But if her husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. So now we should understand also a woman that's married, she bound to her husband while he's alive. Okay. Now, when you read in verse, but if when somebody depart, that's talking about abandoning. Okay. Now let's go to this question. So that's just a little bit on the Bible saying about divorce. A lot of times when you read, it's talking about putting away, it's talking about separation. And if you don't make that distinction, you're not really going to understand what's being said. And quite frankly, what's being said won't necessarily make sense. Okay, let's see. In the instance of Abraham, this brother Jim, he said, peace, brother. Question: in the instance of Abraham and Hagar, would a concubine fall into the same protocol in terms of the bill of divorce? Okay, so let's read about it. Let's read, go to Genesis, and let's read in that particular case. And Hagar was the Egyptian woman that we're in Genesis, the 16th chapter. Okay, Genesis, the 16th chapter. And it says in verse 3, and Sarah or Sarai, Genesis 16:3. Actually, let's pick it up at verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, who was Sarah, and Abram is Abraham, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. So he listened unto his wife. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram and had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. Okay, so now that was his wife. We understand that was it was like a secondary wife, and they said she wasn't in the same position as Sarah, because Sarah, again, she gave her to her, just like when you read about Leah and Rachel and Zilpah and Bilhah. They weren't on Zilpah and Bilhah. They are his wives, but they weren't on the same level as Rachel and Leah. So it says, let's see, and verse 4, and he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Okay, so now let's skip down a little bit. It says, well, I'm gonna keep reading. Verse 5, and Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my handmaid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thine hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. So now she left. Okay. So kind of like if a woman separated herself. Now she left her and she took her baby. But then the angel Lord came unto her and said something. Let's see. In verse 9, it said, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself unto her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Okay, so now he sent her back. Right? The angel told her to go back and submit herself unto Sarai. But so she fled. So now the question is, would a concubine fall into the same protocol? In the instance, let me say that in the instance of Abraham and Hagar, it wasn't a bill of divorcement. She just left. Okay. She didn't care for the treatment she was getting at the hand of Sarai. She left. But then it said, well, the concubine, so it's a separate question. So you can't really compare the two. So I'm just doing that to separate the question. So it said, would a concubine fall into the same protocol in terms of the bill of divorce? Okay. So now, if you look at what a concubine is a secondary wife. So let me say this: in certain cultures, probably not, because again, concubines are looked upon as you may like. You look in certain times in certain areas of the East is looked upon as differently, where you may not have that bill of divorcement. But ultimately, a concubine is just a secondary wife. So I would say, if it's a wife, then yeah. As far as a bill of divorcement, yeah, it's just a secondary wife. But that's still a wife, though. But sometimes when you read concubine, I'm not talking about in the Bible. I'm talking about in other cultures. It's a little different. Okay, so concubine is simply a secondary wife. So, let me see here. Give me 1 second. And that's all it is. It's a status thing. Give me 1 second. Because even with his saying, I'm not gonna go there, but it's even when you look at, he took her to wife again. That's a wife. You can consider her concubine only in status, but she's still a wife with rights. Okay, so yes, you're not just, because ultimately then it just becomes, oh, you just dealing with this woman now. Okay, beat it, scram. And that's what they're doing right now in the world. And that's not actually what a concubine is. A concubine is not a girlfriend. It's again, that's your woman. But again, how they were dealing, it was a secondary wife. So I would say, yeah, but that's my estimation, because it is a wife. Okay. At least that's how I'm reading. I want to qualify my statement. At least that's how I'm reading. But with that, I'm going to end it there. And I want to remind you that we're at the House of the Faith. We are live streaming every Sabbath at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Peace to everybody that's listening at www.israelteach.org, as well as on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. And tomorrow night, which is Friday night, we'll have our Bible study at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Zoom. You go to the Israel Teach YouTube channel, or you look at the videos. You'll see the description of the video. You'll see what you need to do as far as putting the meeting ID number in there if you want to partake of the Bible study. Also, if you've been edified through the ministry, and we appreciate you, brothers and sisters, you could make a donation. Again, at israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. Again, let me say once again, peace to everybody that's listening. Brother Leo, Brother Jim, Brother Joseph, Brother Dewan, Tavion, SI Motors, Mr. Born Again, and everybody else that's listening. And with that, brothers and sisters, hopefully I'll see you during Bible study tomorrow. And it's always my purpose and my prayer that you will edify.